you were coming for a mukbang, eh? Let's talk about Studio Ghibli. If you haven't heard of Studio Ghibli, they're very well known for captivating stories, charming animation. Some of the most well-known Ghibli films are Spirited Away, Ponyo, Kiki's Delivery Service, pretty iconic movies. And many of their films are directed by Hayao Miyazaki. They do have other directors, including Isao Takahata, Yoshifumi Kondo, Hiroyuki Morita, Hiromasa Yonebayashi, Goro Miyazaki, who is Hayao Miyazaki's son. Studio Ghibli was founded on June 15, 1985 by Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata as directors and Toshio Suzuki as their producer. Their studio is located in Tokyo, Japan. There's also a Studio Ghibli museum located there as well. Studio Ghibli films have won many international awards, including an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature for Spirited Away. What sets Ghibli films apart is that they have very human themes and emotions. They're meant to connect to a deeper part. They like to romanticize the ordinary, the everyday life. And what I like about them the most is nothing they do is really for the money. G-Kids is Studio Ghibli's distributor. I also found out that they're distributing Arcane as well. I feel like it's kind of random, but actually very cool. Studio Ghibli movies are very well known for being very emotional, very intentional, humanist. I don't know. And like I said, Hayao Miyazaki directs a lot of the Studio Ghibli films, especially the more well-known ones. The Wind Rises was framed as his last work in 2013. Miyazaki came out of retirement to direct The Boy and the Heron, which came out last year in 2023. So he took a little break. The Boy and the Heron is about Mahito, a young 12-year-old boy struggling to settle in a new town after his mother's death. However, when a talking heron informs Mahito that his mother is still alive, he enters an abandoned tower in search of her, which takes him to another world. Honestly, a pretty average Studio Ghibli plot. They're very fantastical, which is cool, especially with their animation style. Girl, please. What I like about The Boy and the Heron, and with all Ghibli films, again, is that they feel very deep. Death is a big theme in this movie, which is crazy considering that it's Miyazaki's last film. But what I got from it is that death is part of life, and that doesn't mean we can't live our lives to the fullest anyway. In fact, because of that, we should be taking every single moment we can and making the most of it. I know it's a common cliche to say, oh, they're not gone, they're still in your heart, but I genuinely believe that to be true. People are more than just their physical presence. Also, the setting of a fantastical world feels very much like how it is to explore the inner depths of human emotion. It's confusing, it's complex, no one understands it, but maybe you're not really supposed to. This movie did crazy well, 35 wins and 84 nominations. They ate up. Forgot Robert Pattinson was in that movie. 35 wins. To be honest, I haven't watched all of the Studio Ghibli films, and I haven't watched all of Miyazaki's, but some of the common themes I've noticed are that he likes to have his main characters be very human people, which is good because I think relatable characters is important to have. He likes to have his main character be a dreamer, have an adventure, and a lot of the themes point back to inner belief. The Wind Rises shows the danger of focusing solely on your dream, miss what's around you. I think that's kind of an interesting film for what was thought to be his last. When you focus only on your dream, it can be a little bit selfish. And part of me wonders if that's how Miyazaki felt chasing his own dream, that maybe he had some of those regrets. And then with The Boy and the Heron, it's about how death is inevitable and we have to make the most of life. And I think that being his retirement film, I mean, that's crazy. One of arguably the greatest artists ever. I'm just saying. When I was originally doing research, I didn't even know Miyazaki had a son, but I was like, oh, Goro, he can be the future of Ghibli, he can be the future of the studio. I think that's what everyone else thought too. Goro declined being the successor. I believe it sold to Nippon TV. Goro directed From Up on Poppy Hill, which I loved. That film is honestly one of my favorite Ghibli movies that I've watched so far. You can tell it's a little more down to earth than some of the other Ghibli stuff. If you haven't watched that one, I really like it. It's very charming. It's sort of like coming of age, high school romance, but it's really cute. From Up on Poppy Hill is definitely less fantasy focused. Goro also directed Tales from Earthsea, which I haven't seen, but I assume that one has some more fantasy elements. The light is slowly consuming. I feel like you could argue Studio Ghibli is going to have to change a little bit. With the big founders getting a lot older, Studio Ghibli doesn't really have a lot of younger staff, do they? In some of the articles I was reading, they were saying one of the things that made Studio Ghibli so great is they had the same animators hired for such long periods of time that they were really able to own their craft. Instead of hiring people for like a project by project basis, they just kept the same people, which is cool. But I do see how that could be a problem if there's not a lot of younger staff. I think Studio Ghibli is a really good example of why stories need to speak to a viewer's heart. My favorite Ghibli movies, personally, are The Cat Returns and From Up on Poppy Hill. Both of those are actually not Hayao Miyazaki films, but I do really like Miyazaki's work as well. The Cat, so good. The Cat Returns is about a girl named Haru. It's sort of just your typical schoolgirl. Things never really seem to go right for her, but nothing's necessarily wrong. But she finds herself in a precarious situation, and it involves cats. Underrated Ghibli movie, in my opinion. I think Haru is really relatable as a character because she's just kind of average, but I mean that as a compliment. What is more relatable than average? The themes in this movie really focus on the importance of self-confidence and believing in yourself. Again, Studio Ghibli really likes dreamers and going on journeys. This has a lot of those elements. Also, the cast, the voice acting cast, is like stacked for some reason. Haru is voiced by Anne Hathaway, and then her best friend in the film is voiced by Kristen Bell. Like, hello, they do get really good voice acting casts on these. Can someone else have seen this? Can we please talk about it? From Up on Poppy Hill. My other favorite is a heartwarming teen romance. What I like about it is it really highlights Japanese culture, and it kind of just takes you through a sort of mundane situation. It has such a charm to it that you just can't help but be drawn to it. Honestly, From Up on Poppy Hill is probably a good start if you've never watched a Ghibli movie. I do think some of them, because of their fantastical elements, can be a little, I don't want to say strange, but they definitely have charm, and they're definitely unique, and they definitely speak to your heart, and I think that's what makes them so good. I'm afraid of the light. I definitely realized I could just close the blinds. I don't really know what's happening to Studio Ghibli, to be honest. I'm not aware that they're making anything right now. I grew up with a lot of the Studio Ghibli films, so I definitely want someone sort of continue that. And I do think there's a lot of studios that are really good as well. Makoto Shinkai, who's made several films. But hopefully we'll see some more great directors who can tell stories with that same charm. What are your favorite Studio Ghibli films? Again, I really love The Cat Returns. That one has a special place in my heart. I also just really like cats, so that might be a thing. But if you have any recommendations for me, please put them in the comments. Thanks. I don't know why the light was like, hello. All up in my business.